Chicago, 2011. A cop is murdered. Police and prosecutors swear they have the trigger man. He swears he didn't do it. How far will each side go to prove they're right?
Like it's just one bombshell after another, where you're like, what?
The story of a PlayStation, a brain-eating amoeba, and the relentless pursuit of justice. Off Duty, out now. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Pepsi Prebiotic Cola in original and cherry vanilla. That Pepsi taste you love, with no artificial sweeteners, only 30 calories, just 5 grams of sugar, and 3 grams of prebiotic fiber. That great Pepsi taste with even more to love. Pepsi Prebiotic Cola. Unbelievably Pepsi.
Hello, welcome to the Psych Legal Pop Podcast. This is a podcast where we discuss popular culture through the lens of an attorney and a therapist. I'm Brooke Brigham, I'm the attorney.
And I'm Tess Brigham, I'm the therapist.
So today we are going to talk about the ABC long-running franchise, The Bachelor.
And Bachelorette.
Now, this came up because I saw that The Bachelor was coming back in January.
Oh, it is?
A new season.
Oh, I know that.
January, end of January. And it's The Bachelor, and, The Bachelor's gone through some stuff in the last couple of years. It's been in the news. I mean, It's been on for 20 years, and we're going to talk later just about the franchise in general. But before that, what also got me interested in this was that Chris Harrison, who used to be the host of The Bachelor and basically the face of the franchise, he has a new podcast out, of course, and it's called The Most Dramatic Podcast Ever.
Yes.
Right? It's a play on where he would always say, in the most dramatic Bachelor finale ever,
Yeah.
most dramatic rose ceremony ever. So he's put out 2 episodes. I guess ultimately he said the podcast is going to be about relationships.
Yeah, and that is insane. The first podcast was just him talking, and then the second podcast was him with Lauren Zima, who is his fiance.
Right.
And I don't know, I guess they wanted to talk together. And I listened to the first 2 episodes, and I'm like, I'm not going to erase the podcast yet. I'm not going to, I'll download, because I really want to hear what 3 and 4 is of, are they going to go right into relationships, or what are they going to be talking about?
Well, yeah, because the first 2 episodes are him explaining how difficult this experience
it has been and very difficult for him.
Just to catch it, if people don't know what we're talking about, this difficult experience, basically Chris Harrison was let go as the host of The Bachelor because in 2021, The Bachelor had its very first Black Bachelor. They had a Black Bachelorette, 2 Black Bachelorettes, actually prior to that. But it was the first Black Bachelor, Matt James, in the almost 20-year history of the show. And basically, Matt James picked a white woman they didn't get engaged, but he picked her.
Yeah, she was one of the front runners.
In the end, he picked this woman, Rachel Kirkconnell. And while the show was airing in 2021, as soon as it started to air, pictures and Facebook posts and Instagram posts started coming out, showing Rachel posing with friends in front of a Confederate flag at an Old South. I think these were all sorority parties, some kind of Old South party, and then posing at what they call the antebellum party, which is a sorority fraternity party where everyone would dress up in old antebellum clothes and go to a plantation. She's from Georgia.
Yeah.
So I guess this is a big thing in some schools.
And essentially what they're doing is they're celebrating the Old South.
Right.
Right.
Which includes slavery.
Yes.
That was an integral part of the Old South. And it's very offensive. And you should never celebrate something that is racist. And so, of course, people were very divided. And the interesting part was this is actually happening as the show is airing. Mm-hmm. So you're watching them falling in love and you're like, oh boy, like, is he going to pick this girl? It kind of seems like it. And so when the show had, there's a period of time after the show finishes, there's a lag time before it airs. And then they have this after the final rose thing. So anyway, it had come out. Matt James and her show up at this after the final rose taping, and he's very, very, very upset. And he basically tells her, I guess he had already sort of broken up with her and basically said she had a lot of work to do. And she said that she was very confused by everything. She said at first she was very confused, but then it hit her that what she had done really, really hurt him. And at least she had that revelation because I think a lot of people never get that revelation.
Yeah.
A lot of people really don't understand how much these things hurt people of color very much. And they think, oh, it's just a harmless sorority party or whatever. So
and 50 million people go to these I don't know if you're aware of that.
Yeah,
but in 2018,
according to Chris Harris,
which is a lifetime ago, 2018 was a lifetime ago.
Different time.
Different times, totally different times versus today. And 50 million people go to these parties. So this is what Chris Harrison's, let's just be clear.
Harrison, her mocking, this was part of what Chris Harrison said. So what happened was after the scandal broke, Rachel Lindsay, who was the first Black bachelorette in, I think, 2017 or 2018, somewhere in there. She's now an entertainment reporter, among other things. And she was working for Entertainment Tonight.
No, it was Extra.
Oh, Extra. And she did an interview with Chris Harrison about this topic. And what do you think about it?
Can we go back for a second? Because you've watched the show much more than I have. I watched like one season of The Bachelor and one season of The Bachelorette many, many years ago. I just could never get into it because of the time commitment. It just felt like a huge time commitment. So, and I didn't, some people are into it, but so tell me a little bit, I'm a little confused. So from my understanding, they do the show, they record the show in 2020. They start airing the show in beginning of 2021. I thought that when Chris Harrison went and had this interview with Rachel Lindsay, that the show was actually airing, but everything had already been recorded, but it was airing. You understand what I'm saying? Like, so
it was still airing. It was
after airing, though people knew everything that was going on. So people are watching what's happening on the show, and then after the rose is when the first time the two of them have seen each other since everything's come out. Right? At least see each other in between, right?
Well, they have to be secretive about it.
Okay.
But I think as soon as the show started airing and this started coming out, I think he broke things off with her.
Okay.
Because it seemed pretty clear when they showed up after the final rose thing, they were not together. He was very, very upset. So I don't know when in that time period they broke up. But you're right. So what happened was Rachel interviewed Chris.
I want to say it was like February. It was early 2021.
Yeah. I think the show ended in March. So it must have been January, February 2021. And so she's asking him, what do you think about, because a lot of people were pressuring, it took Rachel Kirkconnell a long time to issue any kind of an apology. And people were saying, well, she should apologize. And I think when the interview happened, she still hadn't apologized or made a statement. So the interview starts out, Rachel Lindsay says to Chris, well, what do you think about the kind of like the fact that she hasn't apologized. And that's when he just went.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is that Rachel Lindsay, there's two Rachels. So Rachel Lindsay asked him, what do you think about her not apologizing? And then Chris goes off into this whole other thing. It's like, she didn't ask you about what you think about the world and the political movement of what's happening in the world. She's not asking you that. She's asking you, what do you think about the fact that she's been silent? Right. And how that silence also speaks volumes about things, right? That when it comes to, right, not making a decision is a decision. So not speaking out is a decision that you're making. And Rachel Lindsay, I think, I'm not inside of her head, but I think she was trying to understand from Chris's perspective, how do you feel about the fact that she hasn't said anything?
Right. And he took that opportunity to start defending Rachel Kirkconnell on what she had done.
Yes.
The underlying problem with going to the party and the racial insensitivity of all these photos and stuff. And he really went off on his own tangent. And he talked about, so he was saying that people should give Rachel Kirkconnell grace and space and time. And
she's just a young girl.
Yeah, just back off.
She's a young girl who intentionally went on a very public reality show. So mind you, but she's very young. And
she didn't know any better. And his big thing is it was 2018.
Yes.
Back then, somehow we had different standards about racist sorority parties. And that
was the crazy.
Yeah, he said, "Oh God, what is?"
He was all over the place. He said, "Oh, I don't know, 5 years ago." It's like, no, it was 3 years ago, Chris. Number one, and that this idea of like, hey, is it a good look for Is it not a good look for 2021 and a good look for 2018? I don't know, Rachel. What do you think? Well, let me keep talking, Rachel.
Yeah.
What do you think, Rachel? I don't know. I'm going to keep talking.
Well, what he said was, it wasn't it was. He said he's asking Rachel. He says, is it not a good look in 2018 or not a good look in 2020? Meaning, there's different standards. And she said, it's not a good look ever.
Yeah.
And he just mowed right over that.
Oh, he mowed over that. Yeah. Yeah. But he kept just some of the things that he was saying. I was like, did you spend any time thinking about this? And I think that this is, honestly, I think if Chris Harrison got really honest, I think Chris Harrison went on extra thinking, I'm going to smooth this out.
Right.
Let me mansplain this to all of you about what you should be thinking and feeling. Okay. Give her grace and space. You basically saying, give her grace and space. You all are idiots. You woke police who want her to answer, I'm the face of the Bachelor. So you just calm yourselves down, people. And let me just tell you that this party isn't, basically what he was saying is this party isn't that bad. And she's a young girl. And then just going into the weeds of what people are saying on social media and commenting over and over again. And so much of his anger and frustration was about the woke police and people.
He said woke police like 20 times.
This is a good drinking game. Yeah. Every time he says woke, take a shot. You'll be drunk by the end of that 14-minute thing. It was insane.
Yeah, and he said, my guess is these girls got dressed up and went to a party and had a great time. They were 18 years old. Now, does that make it okay? I don't know, Rachel. You tell me. He was just speaking so condescending to her. A black woman, the very person who these parties were targeting. It was just...
Well, and also she before he even said that, she very clearly said when she said, it's not a good look ever.
Yeah.
And she pointed out to him, if I was to go to that party, who would I be? She very clearly...
Yeah, what would my role be?
What would my role be? Very clearly stated that. And he just blew right on by because that wasn't part of his agenda of what he wanted. You know what I mean? It was almost like he wasn't listening to her.
And she was trying to... Yeah, she was taking on the emotional labor of trying to explain that what the problem is with this racist party. And he would not let her speak. He interrupted her. He cut her off. He spoke over her, wouldn't let her talk. And she finally, at a certain point, just kind of sat back and let him just go off and dig his own grave. And That he did.
Well, and then he said several times, this is my favorite part. He's like, well, I'm not defending it. It's like, you are defending it. He said, I'm not defending the party. I don't think the party's good, but what should we do? And then he made this other comment that I thought was bizarre about San Francisco. I mean, is it good that people in San Francisco are erasing Lincoln and Washington? We're here in the Bay Area. Are we erasing them?
I have not seen any statues of Lincoln being taken down.
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course he has to say San Francisco because the whole world thinks San Francisco is just a crazy place.
Yeah, like we're a bunch of nuts out here. And I'm sure people who are listening to this think that we're the woke police ourselves and that we're nutty. I don't know what to tell you, but that's not what's happening out here. And you want to know the irony is he had to come out to San Francisco to record that first podcast because that's where the iHeart Radio stuff was.
Well, I hope you had a good time.
Yeah, with us, woke people out here.
Yeah. So Rachel Lindsay, she has a podcast with Van Lathan. It's called Higher Ground. Mm-hmm. And so she addressed this on her podcast when it happened. And I'm just going to read you some of what she said. She said, people of color are not given the benefit of the doubt. She can't react or show any kind of emotion to what he was saying because she will be labeled as the angry Black woman. And she said that the way he acted, it was like he got up that day and said, I'm just going to be myself today. Mm-hmm. And she said there was no PR people there. There was no one else sometimes they'll have people from the network or whatever there on the interview or whatever. There's nobody there. It was just the two of them. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, he took that opportunity to just say how he felt. And she said he wanted everyone to give Rachel Kirkconnell, her space, compassion, and grace, but he couldn't give it to her or the people who were offended by what she had said. And what else did she say? Oh, she said that when he kept saying, well, who are you to judge? Yeah. Who are we to judge? And that really...
Well, it seemed... And he spent a lot of time, because I think some of this goes back to his own podcast. And I honestly, I listened to both his first episode and second episode. I took one for the team and listened to it, but I can't do it. Oh, you did? Okay. Because I thought you were like,
at first I did have to turn it off because it was so awful. But then in the interest of research and the podcast
and the podcast,
I went back and I listened to it.
Yeah.
Terrible.
But he's so fixated on, the people on social media. He got so into this whole thing about the people on social media, as if why Rachel Lindsay is trying to bring this conversation to him was, how do I say this? It's like, that she was bringing up this conversation and that this conversation was happening because a bunch of people on social media got angry, and social media is so divided and it's on the left and on the right.
Blaming social media for the things he said.
And it's like, no, Rachel Lindsay is bringing this up to you because this is an important topic to have.
Does it hurt a lot of people?
Yes. And that this needed to be talked about. And if you're coming on this TV show as the face of this franchise that's been very problematic for many years for various reasons, what do you think about it? And I think he just got so enwrapped by the fact, it's almost kind of like that racism is here now because people on social media want people to apologize. Does that make sense? It's almost as if he doesn't.
Yeah, like what if it weren't for social media?
Yes, exactly.
Be talking about this.
Yeah,
we would just be blowing it off like we have been for hundreds of years. Like, yeah, exactly. He wants to go back to the good old days when he could just
say whatever
he wanted, speak with impunity, have his privilege, and that was the thing. His apology.
The apology is the worst. But
apology. Well, and it wasn't an apology. What he was saying on his podcast. I mean, he did do previous apologies. We could talk about that.
Yeah.
But on the podcast, he was acting like he was so wrong.
Yes.
He's like, well, he's so serious and self-important, talking about how, it's been 2 years And I'm just so happy to be able to be here and talk to you. And it's talking about how hard it was for him.
My favorite was, he said, when I see people and, Lauren and I are out, we're traveling the world and we see people at airports. It's like, oh, F you. You're traveling the world? Like I love it when these celebrities are like, I have to retreat to my $1 million estate. It's just like, okay, Chris Harrison, you have money. You were fine. You were not destitute or broke.
Right. He got a $10 million payout.
Yes,
they had to, when they fired him, he had a contract. They had to pay him off. And I think he got at least $10 million. Anyway, but he was acting like people all over the world just loved him or were coming up to him in the airport and saying, oh, I miss you, man. I miss your voice. He actually said that.
Yeah.
People were saying they missed his voice. They missed seeing him. I mean, he was the most self-important person. That's what was hard to take about it. It's like, dude, you still don't get it.
No.
You still don't get it. And even though he was trying to be, he said he did make a mistake. He handled it poorly, this or that. I just think he's upset he got caught.
Yeah.
He's upset that he did that and that happened to his career.
No, I think, who I think he's upset about? He's upset about the woke police. He's upset about the fact that he went on a national TV show. He said a lot of stuff that was very, very problematic, but he doesn't think it's problematic. And because now in 2021, 2022, that there are people now who are constantly watching everything, and he doesn't like that.
Oh, he doesn't.
And so therefore he was forced to go away for a while and and he's just so grateful to be back because he's so missed. I just feel like when he, in that interview, just to go back to that for 1 second, when he was in that interview, all I could think, this is what I wrote down, it was like, when he was talking about the people on social media and the public and all that, is like, how are you different in this moment in time than any of the people on social media? Right? You are sharing your opinion with us. You are sharing what you think about the particular thing. So how are you, Chris Harrison? Who are you, Chris Harrison, to say that you know what the truth is? And I think that's the other part of it that I felt, and that's what I was trying to say earlier, which is just how offensive it was that he felt like he was speaking for every single person in the world. And you've got someone who's trying to have a conversation with you in front of you who wants to share their opinion, and you're not listening to it. So how are you different than anybody else, Chris Harrison? And I just feel like, I wanted to see that in the interview. When he came back around, I wanted to hear him say, because he didn't say in the podcast the name Rachel. He doesn't say anything. He talks around it. Right. He never talks about it. He talks around it. And there was a lot of, I'm sorry, but I'm sorry this. I'm sorry, though. And accountability is about, I am sorry, end of period. Yeah. And that's what being an adult is. Being an adult is being able to say, I messed up. I'm sorry. And you might have your excuse or reason why you did it in the back of your mind, but you don't share it because you don't get to do these things. And that's the part about the world. And what's been happening is that for so long it was like, we just allowed people to say and do things that were like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm just joking. Yeah,
joking.
I'm a good friend, or I this. And it's not just racism, it's sexism, anything. It's ableism, it's homophobia. It's like, oh, I'm going to make fun of you, but I'm your best friend and I'm going to just do that. And that's the part that is really what's happening. Is it's like, no, it hurts people's feelings. Yeah, it's not funny. It's not funny. And it hurts people. And we live in a world now where everyone has a voice. And what's happening is that for the first time in a long, long time, it feels like to me, people are just saying, we're not going to keep brushing by. Mm-hmm. And I think the other part of it too is I think that if Chris Harrison, if his podcast, it just didn't feel authentic. No. And one of the things that I always talk about, because I work with young people, is, Gen Zers and the young people today, they want authenticity. Mm-hmm. So I think
So do I.
Yeah, so everyone does. I'm sorry, but they're the ones that are really this driving force. They want authenticity at work. They want authenticity in the people that they follow. And what people really wanted, I think, what people really needed to hear was Chris Harrison just having a very sincere, like, I just screwed up because he was just made, and I really did not think one iota about what I said, and I realize now.
He never admitted that what he did was racist. He never admitted that he probably needs to take a look at how he thinks about these things, because just like Rachel Kirkconnell or anyone else who does this stuff, they don't understand that they're hurting people. And that's the thing. They have to be educated to understand, like what you were just saying. It's like you can't just do these things and think, oh, it's a joke. It's no, not a big deal or whatever. He never acknowledged any flaw in himself. You know what I mean?
That's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. He says he made a mistake. Okay, well, what was your mistake exactly? Maybe your mistake was that you really don't understand how these things affect people of color, and that's what you need to learn about. And yeah, it was so fake and insincere. And then, you know, so immediately after the interview was aired, they put it on YouTube in its entirety, the Rachel Lindsay interview. He went on this,
Oh God.
he did,
This was bad.
he did a horrible, you know, quote unquote apology. He went on Good Morning America, and Michael Strahan interviewed him. And, you know, he obviously someone wrote that he memorized something.
Oh God, yeah. Someone got a hold of him and coached him.
And he even said that he said he's been working with a race educator and a strategist, and also faith leaders and scholars. Okay, this is literally like a week after. Oh, you've been done all this work in a week? Okay, so he goes on the interview and he talks about how, you know, how he's so saddened and shocked at how insensitive he was. I stand against racism. And then he even said, I'm sorry to Rachel Lindsay and to the Black community. It was such a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah.
Oh, and then he said, I plan to be back and want to be back. And then afterwards, I saw an interview with Michael Strahan afterwards. Strahan did not, he was just like, he did not buy any of that. He was like, huh? He basically said as nice as he possibly could that was just a bunch of insincere bullshit.
And it was, even when you see him, I wish this podcast was visual, because even if you saw him the way he was in the original interview with Rachel Lindsay, you know, he's there and he's in his chair and he's like talking about stuff. And then you see him here, he's like, very serious. Like he had serious atonement face on. And I think that the apology was part of the problem too, because I'm not inside Chris Harrison's head, but it's almost this feeling of, oh God, okay, now I'm going to have to apologize.
Right.
So
my job.
And oh God, these people are too sensitive. Yeah. So let me get on there and let me now I'm going to do this very serious face because this is what I need to do. And I think what was so hard about it was that exactly what you said, which is, if I say to people that these things are unacceptable, woke police, antebellum parties, all forms of racism, if I deny, and I put on a serious face and I tell people that I'm working with faith leaders, that will be enough for me to get my job back and get people to stop focusing on me. And that's the inauthenticity that is so annoying about this entire experience with him, is the fact that I would have respected him a lot more if he got on and said, listen, my white privilege got the best of me.
I had a lot to learn.
I have a lot to learn. I didn't know. One of the things that Van Latham, Rachel Lindsay's co-host, said that I was really, that I want to point out is he said, you know, one of the things about seeing Chris Harrison is that he's not David Dukes. He's not, or is it Duke?
David Duke.
Yeah. He's not on this TV show with a white hood on his face. And I think that's the one part is that there's overt racism and there's covert racism.
Implicit bias.
Yes. And so I think that a lot of times that's when people come in and say, oh, you're being too sensitive, or you're being too this, or you're being too that, is in those moments a lot of times where it's, you know, because he's not wearing a white hood over his head, well, he can't possibly be racist or he can't possibly be the, this. I'm not in any way, shape, or form saying that Chris Harrison is this racist person. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that he has a lot of biases that he's never looked at because of
he's white. He's a white, rich man in America. And that's the thing, here's the problem, just by virtue of being born in this country and raised in this country, this is a country, built on racism, founded in racism. Everybody has, is born into this culture of bias. Yeah. And we have to, some people recognize that and choose to spend their life, trying to dismantle it. Some people have no idea they have it. Some people don't care. I mean, there's all levels of awareness of, people's awareness about this. And it's just such an example of white privilege. He doesn't even know what he's doing.
Yeah, that's what it
doesn't even know. I don't think he was sitting there saying, I'm going to unleash all this racism. He had no idea what he was saying. He had no idea that what he was saying was so wrong. And that's the problem.
Yeah. So when in the podcast, what's so frustrating about the podcast is that, okay, so you've been gone for 2 years. So here's a podcast. We're all here wanting to listen to you. Why don't you tell us what you've been working on, what you've been doing? And essentially based on the podcast, the sense I get is that he's been just kind of, hanging out with his family and his kids.
Waiting for this to blow over enough that he can come out with his podcast.
Come on back. And I don't believe in cancel culture. I don't think that's the way in which we move forward as a society. I don't think it's not about, like, you said something wrong, you go and leave. There's certain people, Bill Cosby, Harvey Weinstein, I'd rather not see these people again. They're monsters.
They're irredeemable, but not everybody.
I'm not looking to cancel Chris Harrison or anyone else.
I want Chris Harrison to learn. I want him to dig into these biases that he has. I want him to spread the word to his, his other, folks who I do. I want him to change. I want everybody to change.
Yes.
I don't want him to just go away and be bitter and never understand what happened or examine it.
And that's what I hate when people use the word woke as if, all of us liberals or whatever you want to call us, that we're on this other side saying, I know better. See, look at me. I'm woke and I'm this and I'm that. That's not what people are saying. What they're saying is that let's acknowledge our privilege. Let's acknowledge what's happening. Let's keep working and fighting and doing better. Because every single day of my life, I work very hard to do better than I did the day before, to be mindful of my own biases, to be thoughtful about what is going on. And I'm not saying by any means that I know everything and I'm the end point. And that's the other part of it. That's not what quote unquote the woke police are trying to do. We're not trying to jump on top of people every time you say something. We're just trying to figure out what do we need to do to make sure that we're not offending or hurting the people that we know and love.
The definition of woke is that you are aware of and alert to racial discrimination and prejudice. It's an awareness. And and
it's a practice.
What's wrong with that? Yeah. And so Van Latham, he said, because he brought up how Harrison kept saying the woke police over and over. And he said, Chris hates woke people. He hates a society where he can't just stomp his feet and have everyone be on his time. He said he preferred 2018. And then he's like, what era does he think 2018 was?
Yeah.
Like, it was a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And
that's the ridiculousness.
Yeah. And then Rachel made the point that, it's just really about accountability. That's all that this is about is being accountable, holding people accountable. My
favorite was, we weren't woke in 1970.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
what?
So this is something that people use as an excuse. I know, it's very easy to use it, which is, he's an old guy. He's been around since World War II. What can we expect from that person? And I think that that's the part of it that when I say practice, what I mean is if you think about meditation, if you think about yoga, there's no endpoint to it. There's no endpoint to this. There isn't I took an implicit bias class.
Right. Solved. Done.
I'm good. It's an every single day thing. And white people have not had to do this ever, ever, ever. And just as men, when all of the Me Too stuff was coming out, it was the same thing. Men, there are certain things that men have never had to think about that we have to think about constantly. And there are things that people of color have to think about every single day, every moment of every day that we have not had to think about. And so for the first time in our, huge history, people are saying, hey, Chris Harrison, and hey, other, stop for a second and think through what you did, what you said. It hurt people. It hurt. And at the very least, you hurt Rachel, who you claim is a friend of yours.
Yeah, and you two
are friends.
You know what she said? She said that after, I guess he did apologize to her after the interview came out. But, but she said it was a very short conversation. And she said that immediately after that, he unfollowed her or blocked her.
Oh, really?
Yeah, from all.
I didn't hear her say that.
From all social media, and she hasn't spoken to him since. Oh, but they're friends.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because he kept saying in the interview, Rachel, you and I are going to talk. We get into this stuff.
Yeah.
We have these conversations.
And
me, Rachel.
He said, well, we've talked about this before. We've had these conversations, and I was kind of like, what conversations have you had? And she said in her podcast, she said, yeah. I have had conversations with Chris about this stuff before, and it went exactly like what you saw on TV. But this was a different. This wasn't on Higher Learning. I don't know if this was on the podcast. I think it was, because there was a second episode that they did after the apology, and I think this is where she said, yeah, she's had these dumb conversations with him before. She said, but this time it was on television.
Yeah.
So the real Chris Harrison was on TV that day.
And let's not forget, the other thing is that after that interview happened, and after, I don't know if it was after the interview or after he was fired, that people started attacking Rachel Lindsay.
I know.
So
she said she got death threats,
and she had to move herself completely.
Yeah.
How scary. And so that's the flip side of it, is even in the Chris Harrison apology podcast, he talked so much about how this affected him, how it affected him. He didn't once say,
no.
And Rachel's gotten tons and tons and tons of hate, and it shouldn't be for her either.
I know.
That she was just interviewing him.
It's so shitty. Yeah. He basically cuts her off, and then he goes on this, his new podcast, and doesn't even mention her fucking name.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he does mention her in the Michael Strahan. He's like, he speaks to the world and says, you need to stop harassing Rachel Lindsay.
Yeah. Well, that was when he was still trying to keep his job.
Yeah.
He hadn't been fired yet.
Yes. Yeah.
Because remember, at first they said he was stepping away. They took him off. They were supposed to be starting another show, like Bachelor in Paradise or something. So they took him off of that. Mm-hmm. And then shortly thereafter, because I think they were going to try to bring him back, but the public outcry was too much, and they couldn't do it, so they had to let him go.
Yeah.
So he was just trying to keep his job at that point.
Yeah. So there was something else too I wanted to say. Oh, so on a little bit of a lighter note, can we talk about other parts of his podcast?
Oh, yeah.
So he talks out of both sides of his mouth. He is talking about how important The Bachelor is, and so much of this, and his identity and all of that. And he wishes The Bachelor well, but at the same time, the ratings have gone down.
And you're not there.
Yeah. And he's sorry to see that. So basically what he's saying is he's happy the ratings have gone down. He's not, and he's not even willing to say, yeah, there's a part of me that's really happy the ratings have gone down and I'm not there. And that is an honest, authentic thing to say versus just the cover up of, I'm such a gentle, sensitive soul. And that's what he talked a lot about, of I come out of it from conscious and I love. And, I normally, this is what he said in the Michael Strahan. He's like, he was shocked by how insensitive he was because he didn't speak from his heart in that moment in time. And he's still on that. That's where he was in the podcast. But So the best thing is that he's talking about who would replace him. He spent a lot of time talking about who would replace him. And one of the things that he said was that there were the other people in Bachelor Nation smelled blood in the water, and that all these people were calling up, vying for his job. You know, people were like, hey, what's up? Hi, I'm part of this. I'll take his job. And one of the people was Nick Viall, that he mentioned that. And have you seen Nick Viall's response to that?
No.
Because I will say it's a little annoying. I was trying to do some research on people's reactions to the Chris Harrison podcast. It was hard to find. And the one thing that everyone's talking about in the media based on Chris Harrison's podcast is not what we're talking about. It's all about this Nick Viall thing. And do you follow Nick Viall or that? No. It's called the Viall Files.
I know he has a podcast.
Yeah. I just want to say this was the most bizarre clip I've ever seen. So Nick Viall, who, I'm sorry, he seems a little, kind of, he likes himself too, I should just say. His podcast is so weird. It's I guess they record it, they videotape it. I'm sorry, I sound like 100 years old. They videotape it. They do it obviously, for YouTube, and they do it for the podcast. Mm-hmm. So he's got 4 other co-hosts. He's got 2 women who look like they're about 22, and they're both sitting next to each other with laptops, like they're at Starbucks. And one is like typing, and she's like, oh, did you hear about Chris Harrison and the podcast? And he's saying this like as if she's like typing the report. It was the most bizarre thing. And then they flash over to him, and he's sitting there with, like his leg up on the thing, just very casual, with 2 other women that don't even speak. And I'm like, why do you need all these people on? I mean,
just creepy.
The visual was bizarre. But Dick Viall, of course, was so offended that that's what Chris Harrison said. And then he basically said, well, take some accountability, Chris Harrison. But that's been the biggest story of all of this. I kept trying to find people that were going to talk about the podcast and talk about how...
I don't think anybody cares. I don't think anyone cares, despite what Chris Harrison thinks. Nobody is out there thinking about you, Chris Harrison. And he called himself a journalist.
Oh, yeah.
Which but before I dismissed that, I said, well, maybe he does have a journalism background. I went and I looked on Wikipedia. No, he's not a journalist.
So what was he doing before this?
He was the host of The Bachelor. He's a TV host. He's hosted some other shows. He's hosted game shows. He's a host. His entire career is hosting television shows.
Yeah. But and the thing about being a host is I listen, I think a lot of people think it's simple and easy. I do think there is some level of talent to do it. I will give you that.
I mean,
but I will give you that. But the self-importance of how he sees himself in the world, I mean, you and I both do work that's very significant, that change people's lives, that helps people. We don't take ourselves this seriously. Like I've worked with drug addicts and stuff, I mean, I don't take myself this seriously at all about what I do. And the best was he was with Lauren.
I'm like, well, who also calls herself a journalist.
Yeah, she's also a journalist.
She's also a television host.
Yes.
Basically.
Who hosted a podcast called Rose, saying roses and rose, and because I think of her connection to him,
podcast,
got some gig that way too.
And she was upset that she had to give that up.
Oh yeah,
for this.
She was honest about it. I have to say, I think this was the most honest thing she said was, "I was mad at you."
Yeah,
I was mad at you, and I think that. She kind of backtracked a little of like, I was mad at you because of this, but really was. You dumbass.
Yeah, I lost my podcast.
And my connection is to you, and now I've got to sit in this multi-million-dollar mansion with you in Austin, Texas.
Well, yeah, and also, it didn't help her career.
Yeah,
she's a host at like one of the Entertainment Tonight.
She's a host, and but the best is he said, really my career, I'm so wrapped up into it, and when you work in the arts, I'm like the arts. I laughed out loud in my car. I'm like the arts. This is not the arts. Who else? I mean, who are you comparing yourself to? I mean, just the self-importance is it was just too much for me. So I'm very curious to hear what episode 3 and 4 are going to be like.
I don't know. I don't have high hopes for this podcast.
Yeah, I'd be very curious to see. I think, but he's got a big deal apparently with iHeartRadio. He's got a big deal with them, and yet again, a real cushy gig. He can record this podcast from his home, and I feel like there's other things he's going to be doing too. I think there's like, I don't think it's just this podcast. I think there's other shows.
I'm sure it's hosting something. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. And that's the thing. I mean, yeah, the self-importance I just can't handle, because not only that, it's like, it'd be one thing if on The Bachelor, he actually was a part of the show in terms of really talking to the contestants in any substantive, meaningful way. He doesn't.
Yeah.
He literally just says, okay, this is the final rose this evening. And, welcome to The Bachelor. And last time on The Bachelor. I mean, literally, these are his lines.
Yeah, he's the, what should I say? He's sort of the train conductor. He's the usher. He's kind of keeping things rolling.
Keeping things moving.
He's keeping things going.
The cocktail party's over. It's time for the rose ceremony.
Okay.
These are his lines. He does not offer anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, any good-looking guy can do it. Now they got Jesse Palmer doing it. I mean, it's like, it's not rocket science.
Yeah.
Anyone can do it.
Yeah. So, if you're looking for someone, I'll do it. I'm criticizing it the whole time, but I'm thinking, hey, give me some roses. I'll do it. Great. Where do I go? Who do I hand the rose to?
Yeah. And when he got fired, it was for a couple of seasons, Tayshia and Caitlin hosted The Bachelorette together, and they actually talked to the women. Like, they would go in and be like, well, what do you think about this, and how are you feeling? It's like, yeah, Chris Harrison never did anything like that.
Yeah.
And they're probably getting paid a fraction of what he was getting.
Oh, please. So I do want to talk a little bit about the franchise as a whole, because this is one of the things that was being criticized, was that you were 20 seasons in, and they do 2 seasons a year,
roughly.
But it's been around since
2002
was the first
Bachelor. 2003 was the first Bachelorette.
Okay.
So the show itself, the franchise itself, is like 20 years.
Now 20 years. So they were getting, there were no, there's very little representation.
No diversity.
No diversity at all. And it's beyond the no diversity. It went beyond people who, right, God forbid you wore a size 6,
Oh yeah, it was, all the women were very thin, had long hair. There was no,
all very young.
No different bodies. Yeah, everybody's young, fit, mostly white, 90% white.
Attractive. Traditionally attractive. And also, you only get a certain kind of group of people, because most people who have jobs can't take off 3 to 4 months to just go and do this thing. And the other thing is, it's such a sexist show. And I know people say, well, you have The Bachelorette and she's doing the same thing, but there is such this feeling of what they do to just men and women, of putting all these people together, isolating them, and the big prize is a man, right? The winner. We keep talking, like, people always talk about, who's the winner of The Bachelor? The winner of The Bachelor is the person who marries, who gets the engagement from the man. So now we're sort of perpetuating this idea that for women, especially, because women already feel this, right? It's not enough to have a career. You have to have a career and a partner and children and look fabulous at the same time. So it's this idea of, for women, to be a winner means that you land a man.
Yeah, no, look, and this is the thing that's problematic to anyone who calls themselves a feminist. And there's a lot of feminists who watch the show. A lot of feminists watch Housewives.
Yes.
Roxanne Gay.
Yes, I know.
One of the,
and she says great things, but she's so interesting.
Feminists in America is a huge Housewives fan. But I mean, that's the thing. I think that the desire to have like fantasy and romance in our life, just because you're a feminist doesn't mean you don't want that, doesn't mean you're not curious about it, you're not attracted to it. So it's kind of, there's some cognitive dissonance there with being a feminist and yet watching this show. And obviously you can watch it with a grain of salt and, you know, like, yeah, you know it's not good, but there's something about it. There really is. There is really something about it. And, you know, I watched the very first season of it, and I watched it for several years, and then I didn't watch it for a very, very long time. Many, many years until Rachel Lindsay's season. So when I heard that, you know, she was going to be the Bachelorette, I was like, well, this will be interesting. I want to see this. And so since then, I have been, I think all but maybe one season, I think I've been watching. I didn't watch very much this last season. I don't know. You know, because after a while, it's a big time commitment. It's like 2 hours a week, and then
Well, and it's the same thing over and over again. It's one of those things where you have to just fast forward. You can probably watch it in 20 minutes or something, because it's like watching an award show. You just got to keep moving.
But I looked up online, like, I think this was one of those articles. There's a lot of articles out there where, like, psychologists, you know,
I read some of those.
talk about how bad it is. And basically, like, the bad parts about it is that it pits women against each other. It normalizes power imbalances in relationships. The contestants are isolated, you know, from their families and any outside opinion. You know, they don't even have a computer or a cell phone or anything. So they can't get advice or, like, talk to anybody. It's an unnatural environment. And they're also under constant observation, so it makes their behavior inauthentic. And again, the unrealistic standards of beauty and happiness. And, you know, Mike Fleiss, who's the producer, he said in a 2020 interview a while ago, he said that the audience, basically this is the formula, is that the audience needs to like the guy and hate the girl. And, you know, that just reinforces that men have the power and women don't. And even on The Bachelorette, like, The Bachelorette is a lot more, the way it's set up, she's kind of stripped of some of her power, and because, like, it's presumed that the woman will move to where the man lives. The man is the one who proposes, and, like, women are shamed for making out with a lot of contestants.
Yes, that's the other thing.
Guys, not, and not even sleeping with, you know, when they get to the fantasy suites and whatever. I think there's a double standard
there. Very much so. The guy can sleep with all the girls, but the girl's a big slut if she has sex with all the guys.
Right. And also, too, I thought this was interesting, is that, you know, a lot of the women who go on this show do have careers, like good careers. You know, there's a lot of women who are lawyers and
that's why, like, some of the women that go on there, like Rachel Lindsay, I think is a good example. I mean, like, she's not someone that I would think would be clamoring to be on the show, you know?
Yeah, and you would think that that would make her even more of a catch and more attractive, but actually, like, a woman's career is actually seen as a liability because she's less able to kind of cater to what the man would want. And like, there was a contestant, a Bachelorette contestant. This was during the time I wasn't watching, but I know her name is Andy Dorfman. She actually left her job as an assistant district attorney.
Oh, wow.
To go on the show. And then there was another woman, Allie Fedowski.
Oh, yeah, I know that name.
Yeah.
She's sort of made a career out of this.
She left her job at Facebook.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
You know, and like, I know Rachel Lindsay, I don't think she's ever gone back to practicing law. You know, then that's what happens. They get, maybe the women who do this are attracted to, like, getting into the entertainment industry. And now, of course, everyone just wants to be an influencer.
Yeah.
Because if you go on the show, you're immediately just automatically, even if you're not a winner, you're going to get, you know, a ton of Instagram followers.
Yeah. Well, and that's a big problem with all of these shows. The Bachelor, 90 Day Fiance, you know, maybe a little bit of Survivor, but not so much. I'm trying to think about some of these other big shows, Big Brother, that people are not going on it because they're not there for the right reasons. You know, they're not going on it because they want to find love, or they want to, you know, Big Brother's very clear that it's just making money, but that it becomes very obvious that they're on there because they just want to be famous. They just want to be. This has become a bit of a formula for people where you're like, oh, I'm in LA, I'm very attractive, and I, don't want to keep working at my job, but I want to be an influencer. So here I go. This is a stepping stone for a lot of people. And so it does sort of become a bit of a joke, right? That's the thing. It's not about finding love. It's about finding fame, finding, opportunities for a new life. So, but we all have to pretend it's about love. And that's what's so weird about the show.
And I mean, some people do find love and do get married. Obviously, it's not every season.
But how do they treat, I'm trying to think about The Bachelorette, and how do they treat the men? Because the men are all competing for this one woman, but are they pitting the men against each other?
This is the interesting thing. In The Bachelor, the women are more like catty and standoffish. Like they might find one or two people to kind of, hang around with or whatever. But there's a lot of, like we don't like this person. And there's always like some girl who's really weird, nobody likes. But the men, it's kind of the opposite. Like the men, they bro out, and they all get really close. And it doesn't even feel like there's any jealousy or anything, whereas the women get very jealous.
So do you think the producers are influencing that?
Oh, I'm sure.
Or telling the women like, oh, so-and-so doesn't like you, blah, blah, blah. And then maybe they're simultaneously telling the men, you should all get along. You should all, be friends. Yeah, that's what I wonder.
I think it might have something to do with the fact that like, ironically, the premise of the show goes against women's greatest fear is like someone cheating on them, because you're watching this guy like cheating, but somehow the men don't seem to be bothered by that. Like they know that that she's obviously, with, dating multiple people. They just don't seem as bothered by it as the women are.
So that's what I wonder. I'm wondering if that is authentic and real or if that is manufactured by the producers. Because this show, while it's a reality show, it is a manufactured show and they decide what they're going to show and not show. This is what I always wonder. I'm wondering if all the men are fighting and they just don't show that. But when the women get along, are they, not showing that? Yeah. That's just my thoughts about it.
Yeah, and it's shocking to me that it's still on the air. I don't know how much longer it can remain on the air. It's kind of started to get, a little more problematic now with, they tried to, bring in some diversity and it didn't go so well.
Yeah.
And, that's just one attempt at, what I mean? There's so many other types of diversity that they should really be looking at. I don't know. I think maybe it's too much for them because,
because it goes against this fantasy, right? If you really think about it, The Bachelor is a fantasy. And this is the biggest thing that you hear from the ex-contestants where the relationships don't work. What they say is that we were traveling, we were on a, hot air balloon, we were in this fantasy suite. They don't want us to get into big things, big topics that they don't approve of. So by the time all the cameras are gone, it's just the two of you, the reality hits and you're like, we have nothing in common.
They don't even really know each other.
Yeah, they don't know each other. You don't have a lot in common when suddenly, it feels less like there are some people that are uber competitive and just for them, that's all, they just want to quote unquote win, they just want to get to the end. And so these topics that are coming up, the issues that are happening, it's like reality is hitting this fantasy and the show can't handle it.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't know what the future is. I don't know if I'll ever start watching it or not. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I'm not going to be watching it this season,
It's too much of a time commitment. These shows that are so long, and that's the part that really bugs me is that, okay, ABC, I know you're trying to milk this for everything that you can because this gets good ratings and ad dollars and all of that, but God, tighten up the show. The show could be one night a week, right? Isn't it three nights a week or something insane like that?
It's only once a week, but it's 2 hours. No,
Several times a week.
No, it's once a week. When they get towards the end, there might be a week where they'll have like the last episode and then the finale in the same week or something like that. But no, it's just once a week. It just feels like forever.
Okay, maybe I'm wrong. I'm wrong then.
Yeah, it's just the same. Yeah, it's the same stuff. It's the same story over and over again. The only thing that makes it interesting is the people. Mm-hmm. And, they have had lately, I feel like they've had some more interesting people on there, but interesting leads.
All right, well.
Okay, so
yes, those are our thoughts.
Those are our thoughts on The Bachelor. We'll see how much longer this lasts. And, were you going to say something?
Oh, no, I'm very, very curious about what episode 3 of Chris Harrison's podcast is going to be. Oh. But I'm also very curious about what the downloads are. I'm just curious because, that was the other thing. I went on his Instagram. I was like, because I could not get any reactions to this podcast. Like I think I found some reactions on Reddit. But I wanted to hear a wide berth of people. Like, what are people saying? And the social media stuff is the same. He has got so many fans. He's got so many people who are like, oh, Chris, I'm so glad you're back. I'm so this. So I'm just and then someone would then say, well, hold on a second, Chris. I don't feel like, you didn't really address things. And then someone below them would be like, why can't you give Chris a break? Blah, 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 blah. Right. So, I'm very curious to see what happens.
Well, we'll have to revisit this.
Yes, we'll have to revisit this.
We'll have to see if this relationship podcast actually goes anywhere. I can't imagine taking relationship advice from him, but okay. We'll see.
All right.
We'll check back. So anyway.
What a conversation.
Thanks for joining us. Yeah, it was kind of a bit heavy.
Yeah.
But, we lean heavy, I think. So.
Yeah. Let's wrap it up. Let's very quickly. After all telling me to wrap it up, I know. I was like, wrap it up. Hold on. Sorry, Brooke. I have a book out. It's called True You, a step-by-step guide to conquering your quarter-life crisis. It's available on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, and it's all about being 20-something and how to make your 20s great and wonderful. I'm trying to find a really quick way of describing the book, but I have a book. Would love for you to check it out. That's it. Now you can wrap.
Okay. Now we're wrapping up. Thank you so much. If you've made it through this podcast, thank you for listening. We appreciate it. Please, if you like the podcast, subscribe and also leave us a 5-star rating and review. And
you can always email us.
Yes, you can email us at psychlegalpoppodcast@gmail.com. If you have any show ideas, thoughts, love to hear about it. So thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Give me a mountain with lots to do. Give me the sunshine, give me a dew. Give me something simple and true. All I need is sunshine and a cool, refreshing mountain dew. So give me my good friends, give me a dew.
Grab some friends and an ice-cold Mountain Dew today.
Mountain Dew.